Quiet down back there.
Good chance.
Full Spectrum Warrior is a tactical shooter that was developed by Pandemic Studios and released on the Xbox and PS2 in June of 2004. This is a game with a strange development history, as it originally began as some sort of training program for the US Army, but due to the complications during development, the game later became a more commercial product with a more realistic simulation version of the game being developed on the side and leading to actual disputes between Pandemic Studios and the US Army. The commercial version that hit store shelves was received quite well at the time and received 7 and 8 out of 10 from most publications. Personally, this was a game that I was looking forward to playing. Not only do I miss games in this sort of genre, such as the old school Tom Clancy titles, but I also did play the demo of this game a long time ago before its release. Unfortunately, I never got around to picking up the title as a kid, so I was more than happy to give it a go now. The best way to describe Full Spectrum Warrior is by saying it's basically a third-person RTS, sort of like playing Command & Conquer but with a very small team. There isn't really a story to the game, other than it's a group of US soldiers fighting a war in a fictional Middle Eastern country by the name of Zekistan, and the game is simply a series of missions in which you aim to dismantle some generic terrorist group in the region. Full Spectrum Warrior is an incredibly unforgiving game, in which you take command of 2 squads of 4, Alpha and Bravo team, as you carefully progress through each mission by checking your map, planning your route, and then moving from cover to cover using both teams to suppress, flank and take down your enemies. There's not a lot of room for mistakes here. Leave your squad out in the open for more than a few seconds and they will end up injured or taken down completely. Lose 2 soldiers and it's game over, returning to the previous checkpoint. While this game wasn't very common back in the day, and is pretty much non-existent in today's market, I did enjoy the very slow and thoughtful approach to the combat. The game itself isn't necessarily hard, as you can play it very safe with how you move your team, but make the wrong move and things go bad very quickly. The cover system itself was quite novel for the time, and I do like how the markers display exactly how each soldier will line up before you order them to run across to a building or a nearby car. You don't actually control the soldiers during combat, instead you give them a target and tell them which weapons or tactics to use. You do have a few options at your disposal when in firefights, such as explosives and smoke grenades. However, I find it most effective to capture the enemy's attention with one team and then flank them with the other. Switching control from one team to another is quite fast, but if I did have to give one criticism against the game's controls, it's that it can feel quite hampered by the game's tight camera. There is a reason that the RTS genre uses a top-down view. It allows you to get a good view of the environment and quickly position your team. In third person, this doesn't work as well. The more limited view of the battlefield means getting from point A to point B takes 3 or 4 moves instead of 1 or 2. Because you're unable to move your marker as far as you'd like to, everything takes longer than it should. Visually, it's not the worst game I've ever seen, but it definitely doesn't look good for a game released in the final year of the PS2 or Xbox generation. The character models are passable, but some of the textures in the environment look really rough, even for a game set in a war-torn battlefield. I did also notice some bad drops in the frame rate whenever the action got pretty heavy. These technical issues could be due to the game's messy development with the US Army, as it does seem like a game that was made a couple of years before its time and remained in development limbo for a little too long. Also, I have to mention that the attempts to give these soldiers a bit of personality and character through the writing and voice acting fail miserably.
AH-64D Apache! That's the shizzy, my nizzy! Yo! Philly, newsflash. You are not now, nor have you ever been black. A word? Blackness is a state of mind, my brother.
Overall, I came away from this game glad that I finally got a chance to play it, and I'm really happy that it's part of my collection. It takes a little time to get to grips with the systems in place, but once you've spent some time with this game, you begin to learn how it all works and it causes you to think in different ways than your usual shooter. There are light bulb moments when you come up with a plan, and when it pays off, it can be really satisfying. If you're willing to be patient, then this is definitely an enjoyable experience, and although some of its technical problems can drag the game down a bit, I would definitely say that this game is worth a try.